It's not showing us on the sign-in page.
Wait,
there we go.
No, it's not.
Is it good?
Okay.
All right. I think we're actually good now. Okay. Okay. All right. So I think we're actually live this time. Sorry. Technical difficulties with Shindig making some changes this week to their software. We apologize for that. Let you guys filter in a little bit here while I give you the intro, and then we'll just get started right away. If people miss stuff, they miss stuff. They can go back and check it out later if they want. So planned here today is to talk about Case Keenum exclusively. We're not going to do anything else. I mean, obviously there's going to be times when you have a reaction to something Adam Thielen does or Riley Reif or something like that, and there will be comments like that. But this is the Case Keenum episode. That's the goal here today, is to get to know Case Keenum a little bit better and try to understand the progression that he's gone through this season in terms of becoming, a career backup, a spot starter, to the player that we saw a couple of days ago, I suppose, on Thursday against the Lions. A guy that seems very composed, making a lot of different types of throws, hitting a lot of different types of receivers, and just doing a lot of different things well. So we're going to try to figure out how we got to this point. I've got about 30 video clips for today. Hopefully we can get that done in about an hour. If we go a little bit long, I don't think we have any real problem with that today, but we do want to be out here so we can catch the Rams New Orleans Saints games later on here. So that's our plan for the next hour or so. If you have any questions, as always, guys, just feel free to fire them off at us. You can make sure to check this thing out on Shindig itself if you want. I think Drew posted that on our Twitter account, Vikings ATL Pod. You can get the link there if you want for a greater experience, I suppose. And yeah, so that's the skinny. That's the plan for today. Thanks for joining us on your holiday weekend. I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. I know I did. So let's get started here right away with that Steelers game. This is a game that Drew and I, we have talked about multiple times on the podcast. We reference it all the time as kind of being a, quote, bad game for Case Keenum. But upon review for, about the fifth time now, I feel like, actually not that bad of a performance overall. I think there are some players that on the Vikings that also let Keenum down to a degree. So let's dive right into this here. There's going to be a couple of different themes here throughout the show. Play action is going to be one of them. That's something that's Keenum has excelled in. Pocket, you're going to see that pop up quite a bit here as well. And then finally, his toughness. That's something that's on display right from the get-go. Starting in week 2, his ability to hang in there in the pocket and take some pile driving hits on occasion and still deliver a strike downfield. And he's actually gotten better with that accuracy with the defender bearing down on him as the weeks have progressed here. So let's start off with this play. I'll run through it a couple times here, let you guys take it all in. This is the reason why I want to start with this play in particular is because this is an example of Keenum, completing a play action pass, rolling out of the pocket, and doing a nice job creating space for himself to reset his feet and make a throw downfield. The difference between this throw right here and what we started seeing, probably 3 weeks ago is the placement. I'm going to pause it right here. You can see where that ball is thrown into Thielen's arms. He's going to make the play, but as a term that I've been using lately on the show, this is an example of a reception created on this play. A great play by Adam Thielen, a reason why I think that he deserves some lower end MVP votes at this point in the season, just for literally making a play and doing his job consistently. So this is something that has helped out Case Keenum quite a bit throughout the year. Drew, what are you seeing on this play? Anything in particular here that stood out to you? Again, this is Keenum's first start of the year. We're really just getting to know him at this point.
Yeah, I think one of the things I've noticed all year is that he's been really good at maneuvering in the pocket and kind of creating plays with his feet. Here's another example. I mean, and in that Pittsburgh game too, I think we even mentioned how it didn't look like he was comfortable moving around, and his pocket presence wasn't great. But it looks like on this play in particular, it's very similar to that play against Detroit. I think on that first drive, maybe where he was flushed out to his left and had to throw kind of across his body to Thielen over the middle. And the placement was just a little bit better in the Detroit game. But I mean, here Thielen's good enough to make the catch. And I mean, yeah, you have to give credit to Case Keenum for his ability to kind of create things when the offensive line, either the pocket collapses or, something, a player gets past offensive line, whatever it is, because he's able to do that. And I think this is just another example. And, I think this was kind of a rare one in this Pittsburgh game, because I think for the most part, he was just out of sync with his receivers, out of sync with the offensive line, not quite in tune with what he kind of shown the last few weeks as far as pocket movement. But great play. The placement needs to be better, I think, and it has been since week 2.
Absolutely. So the major takeaways from this play before we jump into the next one, first and foremost, the ability to manipulate the pocket here. Pocket's collapsing. He escapes away. The second thing right here, this is where I'm pausing. I stopped this one. I freeze framed this one a lot. He resets his feet. Essentially, instead of throwing this one off his back foot, he drives off of his back foot and gets his throw in the air, and with a little bit of zip on it. That's the difference between an interception and a completion a lot of the time. And finally, just the placement of the ball. Obviously, it's a reception. We'll take that all day long. But simply in terms of predicting what he's doing moving forward, it's very important to note that plays like this generally aren't going to create yards after the catch. Generally speaking, this is a play that could go the wrong direction. Thankfully, Thielen makes the play here, and we get a little piece of what Case Keenum has to offer, at least as a starting point here. Moving on to the second play I've got here, I think we're having some technical difficulties with Drew here. Hopefully, he'll pop back in here. Until then, I'll just keep talking. And all right, so on to this one here. This is going through this film this morning, something I noticed was, and it's something that I think I've referenced this in the past. Laquan Treadwell is not playing necessarily poorly. He's just not getting targets. Here's an example of a good route ran by him and a good completion by Case Keenum. Keenum in this game targeted Treadwell 6 times. I thought that would set a precedent moving forward, that he would be a guy that he'd be looking to more often. We haven't seen that nearly as much. But the major takeaways on this throw right here is it's a quick slant. This is something that Pat Shurmur runs all the time. It's generally going to be to Adam Thielen or Stephon Diggs, but on this particular play, Laquan Treadwell is the recipient here. He makes the catch. It's a modest gain, I suppose, but this is a staple of what Pat Shurmur and Case Keenum have been doing, and kind of this starts real early with the quick slants and trying to get one-on-one matchups on the outside, just basically saying, we think our guy is better than your guys. We're going to beat him on a quick move to the inside. So, Drew, what are you seeing on this play? Anything in particular that stands out to you about Case Keenum here? Any positives, negatives?
I mean, the play action fake I think is pretty good, and the fact that the Vikings do kind of let in those. Pittsburgh has a couple of free rushers here that give Keenum a good lick here. But he can make. I've admired of him is that he can stand in tough and make those throws when there's guys about to lick him. So, and then I'm going to clarify too. I need to apologize for this internet situation that the internet that I have at home is apparently a lot worse than what it is at school. So if there's any lagging, I'm trying to fix it and doing what I can to kind of work on that. But as far as this throw goes, I think just Keenum standing tough in the pocket and making that throw with 2 Steelers literally hitting him in the ribs is pretty respectable for me.
Absolutely. All right, so on to the next Steeler one. We're going to have to go a little bit quicker, I think, just because if we want to get through all this stuff, it's going to take some quicker breakdowns. So I'll try to move a little bit faster here, starting with this play, if I can find it. All right. The reason why I picked this one out, this one looks like nothing, but the reason why I picked it out is simply because this is something I've seen Case Keenum improve on a ton. Check out this screen pass right here. It's going to be incomplete, and it's an awful pass. There is absolutely no excuse for making a pass like this when you're throwing a screen, especially when it appears that he is the first read on the play, Jerick McKinnon, that is. Case Keenum looks right over in his direction, and he tries to drop a touch throw over the defensive lineman, and that ball is going to float right over to Jerick McKinnon's hands, and even his outstretched arms, he's not going to Odell Beckham this one. That's an incomplete pass. This is something that cannot happen on screen plays. It's essentially a wasted down. It's a simple enough throw, at least relative to the NFL in terms of standards. This is a throw that he needs to make every single time, and something he has gotten a lot better at doing throughout the season. But as it stands, going back to the Pittsburgh game again, his first start, not necessarily prepared for it. This one got away from him a little bit. Not his best throw that he's going to make as a Viking. All right, so we lost Drew here again. I really don't know what's going on here with the internet. I apologize, but I'm just going to keep moving. So, sorry about that, and hopefully we'll get him back here soon. Moving on to the Bucs game now. Obviously, most of you guys are going to remember this particular game being a big deal. Case Keenum showed up in a big way. This is kind of the breakout performance for him in a number of ways. At least a lot of people started believing in his potential and what he can do in this offense. Drew, are you with me now, by the way? Can you hear me?
I think so. I can't imagine I'm going to stay very much longer, but, I mean, who knows? Who knows?
Fair enough.
I don't.
All right, well, we'll try to hopefully you can well, why don't you help me break this one down while you're still here, and worst come to worst, I'll finish thing up on my own. Another play-action fake, deep ball, a beauty. This is early in the game. What are you seeing here?
Okay. Yeah, this is just another play-action fake. Again, this is Case Keenum in play-action. He's been phenomenal all season with the play-action fakes here. Obviously, it does help that there's a running game that's respectable here, but and this is Case Keenum throwing deep has been, I think, a bit of a concern for me because it seems like me and BJ have talked about this before, that he attempts throws sometimes that his arm can't handle. I think his arm strength is not exactly top tier in the NFL, but this is one where he drops it in perfect. This might be his best deep throw of the season right here. In between two defenders, essentially, and he hits Diggs right in stride, and I think this is probably the best throw I think I've seen out of Case Keenum, and he's in rhythm out of the play action. I mean, again, I think this is a rare occurrence where Keenum does throw it that deep and hits it accurately, because I think for the most part, when he does take off, he bites more than he can chew, I guess, and swallow is what I'm saying. So he's able to do it, and this is again another example of that Bucs game where he was just phenomenal and led the Vikings to maybe their best offensive performance of the season.
Absolutely. This was just a phenomenal play by Case Keenum getting the ball down the field. And I think I just saw this from our guy, Elite Company Driver. He just said in the chat room, I'm on YouTube, that he wasn't expecting this game. I don't think anyone across the NFL was expecting this type of performance, especially the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But Case Keenum seems to have his number. He's now beaten them 3 times in a row, and plays like that are part of the reason why. This game, honestly, this was probably the most packed in terms of good quality film clips to diagnose, so I did have to cut a few out here. Going back to what I said about the screen pass on the last play here, on the last game here, check this one out. Check out the difference in the screen here. Just the touch on this throw, setting up Jerick McKinnon on the outside to get in, or excuse me, this is Dalvin Cook still, setting him up in space here to get in and do something after the catch. And above all, he completes this pass, and they're getting yards after the catch with their playmakers. This is something that Pat Shurmur is going to try to do for the rest of the year. It doesn't matter who's at quarterback. Screens are going to be a big piece of the Vikings game simply because they've got a lot of skill players that can make guys miss in the open field. So here's an example of trying to get Dalvin Cook in the open field. Case Keenum, I know it looks like an easy throw, but he sets it up nicely. That's a first down for Dalvin Cook.
Right. I mean, I think that's what you do with screens is you just try and make sure you're not forcing your running back to kind of lose ground because he's got to either run backwards, make the catch, or turn around and make the catch, or whatever it may be. The last thing you want to do is limit your running backs, or I guess whatever, if it's a receiver, limit his potential on the play because he's got to give extra effort to make the catch. And that's the idea of a screen is to get your playmakers in space with the ball, with blockers in front. And essentially, a kind of a modified running play where you have blockers out in front, and you're kind of moving the run instead of from the behind center or whatever it is. You're moving the run play out to the outside. And the last thing you want to do, again, is to limit that potential of the play. And that's what Keenum does on that one in particular. He kind of drops it right in the bucket and allows Cook to essentially keep moving on the same drive.
Moving forward here, we're just going to keep rolling here with another vertical pass. What made this pass in particular so impressive to me is check out this poor snap by Pat Elflein here, lining up in the shotgun. This is This is a snap that Pat Elflein isn't going to do often. I believe this was the only time I saw a Ari snap, let's call it that. But Keenum's going to catch this ball with one hand, and this is a situation where a lot of quarterbacks are going to get happy feet, right? When you go into panic mode, even for just a split second, trying to get a hold of that ball, resetting your feet is something that a lot of quarterbacks have to reteach themselves to do in that kind of moment of panic. Keenum right here just does a solid job. He in this play, he does stare down his number one read. I'm fine with that given the circumstances, and he delivers an absolute strike downfield to Adam Thielen, who has been absolutely sensational this year.
Yeah, and that's just another example. That's one of those toughest routes in the NFL to throw to right here is the, and the separation Adam Thielen gets is, I think, kind of what makes this throw easier for Case Keenum for sure. But the opposite hash on a deep, what looks like corner or out route, that's the toughest throw, I think, in football to make. It takes some serious arm strength. Thielen hadn't gained that much separation. Maybe Keenum doesn't make that throw, or maybe if he does, it's a lot tighter window, obviously. But the fact that I think this throw is almost more. The credit more needs to be given to Thielen for getting that kind of separation. But again, for Keenum to recognize it, make the throw on target, and give Thielen a chance to keep both feet in bounds, obviously deserves credit as well.
All right, so this is one play here during this Bucs game that I think Keenum would probably like to have back. Again, like I said at the top of the show here, the goal here is to go through and try to find a couple of passes that are good or a couple of plays that are good and a couple of plays that are bad. This, in my mind, was a bad play. Check out the separation that Kyle Rudolph is going to get the stem of his route here. He's got basically 2 or 3 yards of space to make a catch here. It's not a tight window throw. There's not a whole lot of pressure in Case Keenum's face at this point. You do see the defensive tackle bearing down at him towards the end here, but at that point, he has enough time to still step into his throw. He throws a little bit off his back foot. He's going to miss Kyle Rudolph over the middle here. This is a play that you think that your quarterback is going to make. You hope that he's going to make this play. Obviously, incompletions are part of the game. I'm nitpicking to some degree, but this is an example of a throw that Case Keenum probably would like to have back from that outstanding Tampa Bay game.
Right. I mean, and that's how every quarterback, when you evaluate quarterbacks, not every quarterback is going to be perfect on every throw, the right decision on every play. But I mean, quarterbacks have bad throws, and I think this is just an example here. It's just, when you get a tight end with this much separation, you have some forgiveness to kind of, I wouldn't say, throw. You don't have to be perfect as far as leading him, and I think that's, again, what Keenum is trying to do here. And when you get into a groove like this, I understand that you can try to kind of, really kind of, you get ambitious, and I think that's what happened here with Rudolph. And I think part of it too could be just that he's used to throwing to Thielen and Diggs, who are faster guys, who are going to move down the field quicker. And I think Rudolph is obviously not as fast in a straight line speed fashion as Thielen and Diggs. So maybe that was part of it here. But again, it's just a missed throw. That's all it is. And back in every game, in every level of football. And this is, I mean, Case Keenum's not exactly, he's not an exception to that rule.
All right, so from there, let's move into the next game of the year. This is a game, again, that we referenced quite a bit. That first Lions game, a game that the Vikings probably we're going to the Bears next. So this game, again, little stipulation here, of course. You guys remember Sam Bradford started this game out. Didn't play well, looked very, very injured the entire time. Case Keenum came in about 3 minutes before the first half concluded. So limited throws in this particular game, but he still came out with a strong performance. Vikings get a W at Soldier Field, something that they've only done once before, before the Bush administration, that is. So this is going to be this first play. Is that touchdown he's going to throw to Rudolph in the back of the end zone. And what I want to note here is the improvisational skills. What makes this play special is not the throw itself, but just the ability to extend the play here, get himself into a position, and then being able to kind of Derek Jeter that throw, a little one hop as he's rolling out of the pocket, and deliver essentially a strike into Rudolph, who has, I don't know how he decided to come back here. I feel like that, again, was improvisation by him as well. But this is just a good throw and catch overall, and a severely underrated play, because I think a lot of people sitting on their couch say to themselves, oh, I could make that throw. He's so wide open. But given the circumstances here, watching him roll out and just the ability to kind of connect with Kyle Rudolph without really saying anything, this is a good example of kind of building chemistry that you're seeing between Case Keenum and his teammates.
Yeah, it looks like a kind of either a flood concept or a levels concept here, where you kind of have a lot of the offense or a lot of the receivers flowing to one side of the field, and Keenum does the right thing here to roll to that side of the field where everybody's kind of going, and then it was good job by Rudolph and Keenum both to kind of cutting back across good as, finding an open spot, because all of the Bears defenders are flowing the same way. So going across the green is going to leave. And again, I usually don't like when quarterbacks throw across the field like this. I think Mitch Trubisky made a play in this game, actually, that turned out to be a touchdown, but was really a risky play, where, if there's defenders on that backside, typically that's going to be picked off. And there wasn't any. If you can see when you pause it there, in the back of the end zone, there was nobody on the backside. So it was an easy kind of pitch and catch there. And it was just good timing by Rudolph to kind of stop his route. And then Keenum obviously to recognize it and give him a chance to make the catch. Absolutely.
All right. So moving on to the next play from this Bears game. Overall, this was a very solid performance for Case Keenum, especially given the circumstances. A lot of highlight reel plays in this one. I want to, since we haven't talked about it yet, let's take a look at his toughness here. This is something I noticed over and over again, and something I noticed rewatching the film through the all-22 angles, as opposed to watching the live broadcast. I didn't notice how many times Case Keenum is actually getting hit as he's delivering passes. Part of that is on the offensive line to a degree, and part of that is simply Case Keenum, standing in there and the willingness to accept the hit. And accept what's coming for him, but still deliver a strike. This play in particular, I mean, you can just check that out. He's taking a monster hit on his throwing shoulder here. He's falling away from the ball, and he's still going to drop that one off into the breadbasket of Jerick McKinnon. He's going to go in there for big yardage. So an example of the toughness that you're going to get in and out every single week. From an intangible perspective, we've talked about this quite a bit with Case Keenum. He does a lot of things very well. His awareness in the pocket, his knowledge to, know when he needs to get rid of the football here, and the ability to just straight up stand in there. And at this point, he realizes that he's going to get hit on the play. He takes a big shot, and yet he dumps that one off into the breadbasket for Jerick McKinnon, and he goes for big yardage. So anything else you want to add on this play before we jump into something else?
I mean, yeah, again, this is just another one of those examples where it's a short throw that, it seems easy, but to get your guy to hit him in stride and give him a chance to make a play after the catch is important on these short ones. And he does that again here with a guy, essentially smacking him in the face. So, again, another great play by Keenum. And this, I'm pretty sure this throw resulted in 6 points, at the end of the drive. So, again, Case Keenum making plays that are kind of those little things that are not usually seen or kind of talked about. He does them really well, and I think that's part of the reason he's had so much success.
Absolutely. Okay, so on to the next one here. This is going to be an example of a bad throw from Case Keenum in this game, but it's still going to be a completion, but it's one of those things where it's a trend that you don't want to set, right? So on this particular play, the throw is, for what it's worth here, it's going to be in a place where only Michael Floyd can get it. So for what it's worth here, that is good on Case Keenum. Again, but we're going to go back to the reception created thing here. Basically, Michael Floyd is going to put himself in a position where his catch radius can take over. And as you can see right there, the ball is thrown away from the cornerback, so this isn't going to be an interceptable pass. So good on Case Keenum for that. But the play that Michael Floyd makes here to bail Case Keenum out, and I believe in this particular occasion, this was like a 16-yard first down on second and long or something like that. So this is a big play by Michael Floyd, and just another one of those examples of when you hear people talk about how Case Keenum is, yes, he's playing well, but he could be playing better in terms of giving his receivers more opportunities after the catch. This is a kind of a smaller example of that, where Michael Floyd is actually making Case Keenum look good, not the other way around.
Well, see, I think I look at this and I see Case Keenum recognizing a one-on-one matchup with, favorable, especially, size-wise, a favorable matchup here for Michael Floyd. Big physical guy, gets a smaller corner, and it's one of those kind of, it could be a back shoulder throw here where he's just kind of giving his guy a chance in a one-on-one play, knowing that Floyd has that, that kind of high point the ball, 50-50 ball, ability to make these catches. And he sees the one-on-one play here, and he's just giving his receiver a chance, which is something that, I think he for sure knows that, you have to do to some degree when you have guys like, Thielen, Diggs, and Michael Floyd too, on your team. You got to give those guys a chance to make play look better. That is just seeing the matchup and throwing it really in a spot, like you said, that only Michael Floyd can make a catch there. And kudos to Floyd for adjusting well and making that catch and bringing it in as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. One thing that you can almost always say about Case Keenum on most of these plays is that he has a lot of confidence in his receivers. That's something that goes a long way for a quarterback. Obviously, quarterbacks that trust their guys to make plays for them tend to, do a little bit better as opposed to the guys that like to be check down Charlies or simply don't have the balls, as Mike Zimmer likes to say, to work that ball down the field in one-on-one matchups. So this is a situation where Case Keenum trusted his guy despite it being Michael Floyd, a guy that has basically played anywhere between 5 and 15 snaps for the most part of the year in every single game. Yet Case Keenum still has no problem throwing him that ball in a one-on-one situation. The throw just simply, it could have been a little bit better. That's the only knock I got on that play. Nitpicking once again. So let's move on to the Packers game at this point here. This is going to be another play action pass. This is an absolute beauty. This is one of the best throws that he's made all season long, in my opinion. There's not even a whole lot to really break down behind the fact that we're once again seeing play action result in a big play. Pat Shurmur has done a masterful job setting up play action throughout the year. I believe there's a play later on that we're going to get to where he literally set up the play action with 4 consecutive run plays only to hit like a 15-yard play action pass right afterwards. This is Adam Thielen creating a ton of separation. This is Case Keenum doing an excellent fake, drawing the linebackers in, creating that one-on-one mismatch, kind of separating the defensive backs. You can see them cross over each other as Thielen completes his route over the middle here, and he just absolutely drops this one in perfectly. There's not a whole lot more to say about that. It's just an excellent pass by Case Keenum.
Yeah, this is again another example for you. You see Blake Martinez, number 50 there for Green Bay, get sucked in really hard on this play action fake, and that opens that window behind him for Thielen in that crossing route. And the thing is too, if Keenum wanted to here, he could think, okay, this throw to Thielen's maybe too risky. I'm going to check this one down. And he has, I believe that's McKinnon in the flat after the play action fake. He has him wide open in the flat there. That would have been probably a 10-yard gain. So, but kudos to Keenum for realizing that he has that window back there. Good anticipation as well, too, to realize that, Martinez was sucked up too far and that this throw was open. And then again, he puts it right on the money. So more play action success for Keenum. A lot of that, I think, is credit to scheme and credit to the running game's improvement, from this year to last year. But I also think Keenum is recognizing it and making the right decisions on each play. And this is another one here where Thielen's clearly getting separation here on Demarius Randall, and then Martinez is just too late to recognize that the play action fake and to get back into his zone coverage. So good play by Keenum, good throw by Keenum, and I think that was 20 yards and a first down. You can't really beat that.
Absolutely. So moving on to another one here. This play is just going to be a straight drop back from the shotgun. And what's so beautiful about this play is check out that high-low towards at the end of the play here. I'll try to pause it right here. Okay, so check out the high-low. Safety's coming down from over the top. Cornerback is trying to go backwards, trying to make a play. Basically, this is going to create a very, very tight window to throw this ball into. This is on Adam Thielen to a degree for finding the soft spot in the zone. But more than anything else on this play, this is one of the better throws that Case Keenum has made all year. Simply the touch on this throw, being able to drop this one in here. This is not an easy throw by any means. First of all, it's a deep out, which, as Drew referenced earlier on a different play, one of the hardest throws to make in the National Football League. The 12-yard out. This looks like about an 18-yard out. So this is not an easy throw to make. Check him out right here. Look at his footwork. He's going to drive off of his back foot. And he's get all of the air underneath that he needs, and he's going to drop that one in right perfectly over one Packers cornerback and be in front of a Packers safety. So to a degree, I understand. You take this with a grain of salt because these are Packers defensive backs, and we all know how good they are. But for what it's worth, this is a hell of a throw. There's not a lot of quarterbacks that make this throw consistently across the league. Period. This is an elite caliber throw and something that you expect from a franchise caliber quarterback. This is something that he can definitely hang his hat on when he's negotiating his new contract next year.
Right. I mean, this is one of those throws that, I remember even in the Green Bay game last year at home, Sam Bradford made something similar like this, where It would have been in the window of the cover two, kind of that sideline window that's created in the cover two. And you have a super small window. This looks more like a deeper cover three with that window up there, where you have kind of the dropping cornerback. But regardless, there's a very small room for error here, and he hits it from the opposite half. That's probably 30 yards at least of just simple, from point A to point B. This is probably 30 yards at the least, and he drills it, and then gives Thielen a chance to make the catch, hold on to it. He gets there, and we say this over and over. He has about 3, 4, 5 of those just perfect, phenomenal accuracy throws that kind of make your jaw drop. And then obviously there are a few that kind of you're like, what is he doing here? But for the most part, his accuracy has improved throughout the season, and this is an example.
This is an example of what Drew was just talking about in terms of throws that kind of make you say, what the hell was he thinking? I'm just going to run this one through without – I don't know why I'm so dark right now, but I'm just going to run this one through without a breakdown real quick, let you guys watch this for a little bit, a couple times. And Jesus Christ, man. I'm going to run through this one a couple times, let you guys see. Hopefully you'll see exactly what I'm seeing, what's wrong on this play. I'll give you a hint, though. What's wrong on this play is not the tip. Drew, I'm going to jump in and jump back out on my broadcast, so you're going to have to – what the fuck is going on? All right, so anyways, I guess we're just going to have to deal with this. Anyway, so I'm dark, but the big takeaway from this one right here sorry, I have no idea what's going on today. So the problem that I have with this play right here, it's not the tip, which obviously a lot of quarterbacks get in trouble with tips. My problem here is simply the decision. I'm trying to figure out what Case Keenum was thinking here. He's going to throw right into a linebacker. I think I've got it freeze framed perfectly here. This linebacker, I think he's probably assuming is going to come up and blitz. Maybe that's what he saw pre-snap, but he's going to drop back here, and he's going to literally stare right into his face and throw this ball. He misses him a little bit, but there was no play here. This is just a dumb throw altogether. And again, I feel like I need to say this a lot of times over the course of any show discussing Case Keenum, just because we get so much crap for hating on him. Guys, every quarterback is going to make mistakes. My goal here is just to point them out to you. This is a dumb mistake. This is something that he probably learned from, but I guarantee you Mike Zimmer was swearing at him at the sideline. This decision is not good. It's unacceptable, and I'm sure Case Keenum knows that as well.
Yeah, there's always throws in a game that you kind of anticipate are going to be open, especially on these kind of quick in the West Coast offense. There are plays where the hot read is expected to be open, and when offensive coordinators, QB coaches, whatever it is, they anticipate things being open. And this is another one of those situations that the Packers just had it, had it down. They had this one beat, and the linebackers dropped in coverage well. And, I think he kind of thought that he was able to fit this one over the linebacker and still get it in there, and he clearly wasn't. So, obviously this turned into an interception, one of those plays for Keenum where, he didn't I think back to that Redskins game last year where Sam Bradford threw that pick at the end of the game. The defensive end dropped back into coverage, and you really can't anticipate that. I think that's what happened here. It's just the Vikings anticipated the hot read being open. It wasn't there, and Keenum kind of was at fault for that. So, BJ, you should try turning around toward the window so that the light is hitting you in the face, and you're not blocking the light. But I don't know. Maybe I don't know.
I don't know. This whole thing is a disaster. I'm just going to keep going, and hopefully we can get something out of this one. We're moving on to the Ravens, though. On to the next one. This one right here, we're going to run through it once here. Play action, down the field. What's the beauty of this one right here? Let's keep this one pretty short and sweet. Just a nice comeback play on another play set up by the play action. Check out Laquan Treadwell's route right here. He's going to create initial separation right at his break. So this is a good throw and catch across the board. We got a good route from Laquan Treadwell. Props to him for that. That's nice to see. Hey, the lights came back on. How about that? And on top of that,
they're gone.
And
wait, it's so crazy. It's just off and on.
Should I just talk with my – I don't – okay. Anyways, this is a great throw by Case Keenum. Love what he's doing here. And, again, this is an example of me saying Treadwell is not actually playing bad. There just aren't enough targets to go around.
Right. I mean, that's been the case all year. Thielen and Diggs have been the primary 1 and 2, and with Rudolph kind of mixed in on the progression of each play. And most of the time, You get Diggs and Thielen running their routes primarily, and that's where Keenum looks first. Or it'll in the case of a rollout play, you'll have obviously Keenum rolling out to his right, and typically when Treadwell's on the field, he's lined up on wide left, so he's really outside of the progression on most plays. And that's kind of why Treadwell's numbers haven't really spiked as kind of most people wanted or expected. But it's not that he's playing bad or playing poorly or running bad routes, not getting open. It's just that he's simply, number 4 or number 5, maybe even on the progression on most plays. And he just simply doesn't have the time or to either get to that, or Diggs and Thielen or Rudolph have made themselves available. And Treadwell then is eliminated from the play, essentially.
I think if I talk with my hands, the lights will stay on.
So I think if you turn around, everything would be good. I don't know if it's possible for you to turn around, but
we're gonna relocate mid-show. All right, on to the next one here. We got light back. All right, we'll run through this one because I can't remember which one I clicked on right now since I was relocating. Excuse me. This is gonna be that great play by Jarius Wright.
This is a great show right now.
This is an awful show. I'm really sorry, guys, sincerely, but we're just going to keep powering through it. Jarius Wright with a hell of a play on this one. What makes this play special from Case Keenum's perspective, in my personal opinion, is simply the fact that he threw this ball in a place where only Jarius Wright could get it. Check that out. That cornerback has absolutely no chance, and to a degree, Jarius Wright doesn't really have much of a chance either. Fortunately, he does come down with this ball. He gets a reception. The beauty here, again, just the placement, putting it in a place where only his receiver can get it. That, in my opinion, earns points with any quarterback.
Right. I mean, this is one of those, this is a throw here from Keenum that's only Jarius Wright can make this catch, even if it's one of the most difficult catches that you're going to ask a receiver to make. The CB tries to kind of undercut this one, and it would have been, it could have been pick 6 here if he is able to make that catch, but Keenum throws it just high enough and makes it just tough enough for him for Jarius Wright to make that catch that's outside of the reach of the cornerback. This is one of those plays where I kind of look at Keenum like, what are you looking at here? Why even throw this ball if the CB is clearly in the better position? But if you could put it in the perfect spot where only Jarius Wright can make it and only make it a diving catch like that, sure. Go for it. If that's what works for you, that's fine. I'm not going to be one to criticize a decision made if it works out. So,
absolutely. I do want to reference that, what Drew just made the point out of there, saying that, this is a throw that a lot of times if the quarterback jumps set, that's going to be an interception. That's something that we saw in the Redskins game a couple weeks later. So confidence in your receiver in one-on-one matchups is most of the time going to be a good thing. But there are examples, where it's not going to necessarily work out nearly as well. Moving on to the next one here. This one is going to be another one of those deep outs that we were talking about before. Another really difficult throw to make. We'll run through it real quick. This is going to be Adam Thielen once again doing his thing. When I was talking on the last one about that high-low in the Packers game, this is what I'm trying to do here by showing this clip next here is simply to show you a trend of a player that's consistently starting to hit these type of throws. Check out his footwork on the play as he drives through. His shoulder comes through. His left shoulder, as his pointing shoulder, is directed right at his target. You can pause it right here and check this out as he moves his feet. Right there, throw comes through. He's going to put that one right in stride between two very good defensive backs. Very difficult play, very difficult throw to make in any circumstances, but against the Ravens defense, a well-coached defense, regardless of the talent they have on it right now, this is a difficult play to make and requires a lot of touch on that throw. Case Keenum delivers a strike.
Yeah, this is just looks like a man coverage defense here by Baltimore, and another, again, one of those out routes that's just super, I think, underratedly difficult to make from the opposite hash, and Case puts it on a dime. And I think I haven't really noticed. I'm going through right now. I'm kind of experiencing and watching this now. I didn't realize how many times he's sideline for the most part accurate on those throws. And you don't really think about that in a game, the fact that it is opposite hash, but that's an extra 6-7 yards you have to throw. And that you have to put extra heat on it. You have to place it differently. There's so many different aspects to it than just throwing it from the same hash to that sideline. And this is a phenomenal throw here because that window is relatively close considering there's another route to the outside right underneath of this throw, and Keenum puts it on the right spot and Thielen makes the catch. Good separation by Thielen, but another great throw by Keenum as well.
Yeah, that's simply a play that, you can expect your quarterback to make this one, but if you do, you're probably going to be disappointed like 50 to 60% of the time. This is a very low percentage throw, generally speaking. Case Keenum does a heck of a job to connect on that pass. Just another example of his type of development. So now we have now gotten through into week 7. I believe we've gone through about 5 or 6 games now. This is the point right here. In my opinion, starting with the Browns game, this is his worst performance of the entire season. But if you were going to switch to Teddy Bridgewater, it's after this Cleveland Browns game, because this is overall a dreadful performance by Case Keenum. He did not play well in this game, so a lot of these next few clips here are not going to be good ones. Let's run through it here, starting with this one here. This is actually the only good throw I recorded from Case Keenum in this game. And what I mean by good, I mean, this was the only throw that really stood out to me and warranted me taking an extra 30 seconds to make a video clip of it. What makes this one so beautiful, kind of a similar thing to what we were just talking about in the last one. You got 2 defenders bearing down on you. Instead of over the top and underneath now, you got left and right. So it's a little bit of a different situation. Keep in mind that these are always moving targets as well. It's a lot easier to hit something when it's standing still. Right here, basically he's going to cut back and he's going to throw that ball essentially very, very close to going directly into the dirt. It kind of looks like a slider to a degree, the way it curves down. But this is as good of a throw as you could make. It looks like the Browns called a coverage that was going to beat what the Vikings called here. This is simply an example of a defensive coordinator beating an offensive coordinator, and yet Case Keenum delivers a ball with, precision accuracy, and his receiver Adam Thielen is able to beat, a coverage that probably was intended and probably should have beaten the Vikings on this play.
Right. I mean, I believe this was 3rd and 15. Is the situation here. So the Browns kind of just sank back into coverage, essentially at the first down marker, and allowed the Vikings to have anything underneath. But Keenum recognized the hole that Thielen had found here, and he threw this one low because it's much easier for a defender to pick off a pass or to kind of undercut a throw that's high in the air like that, and make a play on the ball. And instead, if it's a low ball like this, the defender's got to get down lower to the ground, and then from there make the play. And I think that that makes it more difficult for the Cleveland defender here, that linebacker who was froze for a little bit by Keenum's eyes, looking down the middle of the field to Rudolph, and then he fires a strike just in time. If he waits a millisecond later, that ball's probably incomplete. So, but yeah, I agree. That was probably the best Keenum throw of the day, because after that, he was pretty errant. He missed Diggs open down the field a couple times. Most of this game was not great. And I agree with your assessment that, if there was a time to start Teddy this season, this probably would have been it. After this, with the bye week, Teddy active week 10, it just made sense, because at this point, Keenum had been, he'd been solid. He'd been good enough to lead the Vikings to wins against inferior teams. And the offense was doing enough. And I think following this game, something clicked for Keenum that, we'll get to later. But in this game in particular, it wasn't exactly spectacular.
Something to kind of keep in your head as we break down these 2 poor plays from Case Keenum. Let's keep in mind that the run defense for the Browns was extremely solid in this game. So setting up play action is considerably more difficult here, because the Browns were stopping the run so efficiently throughout the game. So essentially, Case Keenum didn't have his primary, way of throwing the football. It wasn't accessible to him for most of this game because the Browns' run defense was so good. So let's check this one out here. This is a very poor Case Keenum throw. This is going to be another play that gets popped up in the air. Again, it's not the pop up in the air that bothers me. It's the decision. Check out where his shoulder is squared right here. Look at the defenders. If you're staring down that field, and I understand it's hindsight bias, you and I are sitting here with plenty of time to diagnose the situation. But if you're Case Keenum right here, this doesn't look good on film. You're staring right into a safety that's about to reset his feet, and he's literally just going to be standing there. That's into 3 defenders in coverage. It's a stupid play. It's something that he needs to minimize. It's something that he has minimized, but this was a big problem for him against the Cleveland Browns in London.
Yeah, I mean, I think this kind of shows how much a running game, can impact a passer and the effectiveness, because I think the Browns got pretty comfortable with their front 4 even, or their linebackers in general, stopping the run, plugging holes. So if they were able to hand off to McKinnon here, they felt comfortable. You can watch all these linebackers, even a pass rusher here, drop back into coverage like they're not concerned at all about the run. And so they drop back, and it allows the coverage to recognize Keenum's reads, and B, it allows the pass rushers to kind of get their hands up and recognize where Keenum's looking, and that's what happens here. So, I mean, yeah, staring down receivers is never good. Keenum does that here, and I think he's been better about that since. But, I mean, yeah, if you stare down a defender, or excuse me, stare down a receiver, defenses are going to pick that up. It doesn't matter if it's Cleveland Browns. It doesn't matter what defense it is. They're going to pick that up and make a play on it.
I believe this is a play that we actually have previously talked about on the show. I just want to reference it real quick just because I think it's a really good basis for argument in terms of, for the people that are probably with me on this one, and for those of you that are against me, I believe this is kind of my biggest argument against Case Keenum's arm strength, and my general theory that there are occasions where his brain thinks something that his arm can't cash out on. This is going to be a reception by Stephon Diggs, but check out how slow this ball gets there, how much time that safety has to come in, regroup. If Diggs doesn't create the initial separation that he does and put this defender on skates, check this out right there. That's 5 yards of separation right there. Just look at what Diggs did there. That's 5 total yards of separation right there. And he's going to be open, and he's going to give him 5 yards of cushion, but check out how quickly that defender comes in here. And by the time that Diggs actually gets his hands on the ball, he's right there on him. So it ends up being a difficult catch for Stephon Diggs on a play that, if you got a guy that can throw a P in there, Cam Newton, for example, Joe Flacco has a cannon for an arm despite being, what he is. You get one of those guys, a guy with greater arm strength, this ball probably comes in a lot faster, gives you an opportunity for some yak after the catch, and just overall gives you a lower percentage of, possibly throwing an interception here. So this is not a good play for Case Keenum, despite it being a first down, about a 15-yard reception by Stephon Diggs.
It's just, I mean, again, I'm not one to criticize a decision that, ends up working out, but throwing this ball as late as he did to the outside, again, opposite hashes are very tough throws to make, but we have to give a lot of credit to Diggs for getting that kind of separation and making the catch, because most times this ball will be intercepted, or it'll at the very least be knocked down, because you get a defender that has, a running start there to kind of knock that one down, or B, if that ball's thrown a millisecond later, it's probably picked off and taken back for 6. So, that he's walking on thin ice with that one. I'll say that. And, a decision like that, maybe against a better defense, maybe against more alert defensive backs, guys that won't separate as far from Diggs on that route, will make a play on that one. It could cost Keenum and the Vikings later. But, and again, I think this is all nitpicking. We're just picking specific points in Keenum's play to kind of see what he has done negatively. And that's just one of them where that was almost a 50, could have gotten very bad for the Vikings. And who knows, maybe they end up losing that game if the Browns take that one.
Absolutely. So from, possibly the worst 4 quarters he's had as a Viking to maybe the best 3 quarters consecutively prior to the late interceptions that Case Keenum has maybe ever played his entire career. It starts off with this one. Check out the trend once again. This deep ball is going to come off of play action. Here we go. Going down the field, opening up vertical. Check out the separation. And just literally, that ball cannot be thrown better. Guys, I shit you not. This ball cannot be placed any better than Case Keenum did. That is a perfect throw to a moving target over Josh Norman, the second richest cornerback in the NFL. Credit to Diggs for getting open, but credit to Case Keenum for moving over to his second read here and literally delivering the most perfect strike that he might throw this entire season.
Yeah, I mean, this is, a lot of times we like to give credit to the receivers making catches, making Keenum look better, etc. This route by Diggs, obviously, to get the separation of I think a yard or 2 on Norman is exceptional. But the throw here between, obviously over Norman, over Diggs' shoulder with the safety trailing, I can't imagine Washington even expected Keenum to even attempt here. It was almost outside of the realm of Keenum's arm strength here, but he unloads and connects perfectly. This is, again, I think this throw and that Tampa throw to Diggs down the field, both probably his top 2 throws of the season. These are both just absolute 10-cent pieces right here.
I hope you guys have also been keeping an eye on the protection to some degree throughout these clips here. Just keep an eye. Look at Mike Remmers here. Mike Remmers is going to lose his leverage, and just watch him kind of notice that Case Keenum's going to step up and basically just keep his guy out of the play. Mike Remmers lost that battle, but he was able to stay in front of his man long enough for Case Keenum to deliver a strike on, basically what's the equivalent of pretty close to a 7-step drop, assuming that's not a play action fake. That's a hell of a play. That's something that Norv Turner tried to do when he was here. A lot of that type of stuff with that Air Coryell offense. This is a play where Pat Shermer might have taken a page out of his book, and with improved offensive line play, that ball is complete. On to the next one here from the Redskins game. This one's about footwork. It was very impressive. The footwork that Case Keenum has shown throughout the season has been absolutely outstanding. This one in particular, I wish I could cut off, his head, cut off above his knees on this play, just so you guys would stare at his feet the entire time. Just check out how he's, he keeps himself calm enough, but he's almost, he's resetting his feet right here once again. He's going to move again, resets the feet once again here, and this time he's going to throw off his back foot a little bit. Sean Borman mentioned before, how is he rolling out to the opposite side, to his left side. This is an example of a play where he is going to roll out to his left side against his momentum, and he's still going to deliver a strike. So he resets his feet as best as he can here, and still gets enough mustard on this throw to get a perfect completion again into basically double coverage downfield. Adam Thielen creates separation and makes some great play for his quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, that's the key to throwing against the grain here. Whether you're a lefty rolling to your right or you're a righty rolling to your left, the key to throwing accurately that way is to set your feet, if you can, before making the throw, because not many quarterbacks ever essentially have been able to throw against the grain like that accurately. And Case Keenum is able to set his feet here. He takes the extra time to set his feet and on launch here, and unload the throw while getting sandwiched between two Redskins. And he noticed that this is great improvisation too by Thielen to recognize that there's an opening down the field behind the defenders, because Norman kind of gave up on the play initially out of that cover 4 and kind of opened up down the field. And obviously good job by Thielen to get open there, but Keenum to throw that strike moving to his left outside the pocket, that's a pretty solid.
So there was plenty of other excellent throws during this Redskins game. If you guys want to check those out, I put them in my Giphy Cat account, which you can find on this link. I just put it on in the YouTube chat. That's my notes for all of these games. If you want to check that out. This right here is going to be the interception that a lot of people told me doesn't matter. And I'm going to tell you why it does matter. Okay, so this is on 3rd down. This is the number one excuse that I've gotten on this play for Case Keenum. Number one excuse being, it's a punt. Who cares, right? He's just basically throwing. This is a glorified punt on 3rd down. The number one problem with that issue, nobody punts on 3rd down. So you lose a play no matter what. So I don't want to hear that argument anymore. This over here, that footwork, look at how he throws off his back foot, and look what he throws into. Guys, I don't care if you love Case Keenum. I don't care if you're his wife. Look at this play and diagnose it objectively. This is an awful throw. I don't care about the situation. I don't care that the Vikings are winning by 3 scores. What if they weren't? What if they weren't? He can't be making this type of throw. This is the type of stupid thing that you see from Case Keenum every once in a while that forces people to question his authority as a capable starter in the league. This is a dumb throw into basically triple coverage. You just can't make this throw. And for the most part, he hasn't. The interceptions have been very limited. Again, we're trying to find mistakes here. This is definitely a mistake. This is something that can't happen.
Yeah, I like to compare this to a heat check. When Steph Curry drops 7 threes in a row, he's going to get pretty ambitious with the next one and try and shoot it from 35 feet. And I think that's what it was here. He was on fire in this game before. He had 4 touchdowns with no interceptions, and he was kind of, he was feeling himself, and he was trying to get lucky here. Right. Thought he could place this one perfectly to Kyle Rudolph, and he kind of made that decision while Reef was kind of, Reef section there had started to kind of give away, and that's what forced the throw to be off Keenum's back foot, which forced the kind of the weak, floated pass, which resulted in the interception. So, I understand Keenum's thought process because I've been in that situation in a basketball court anyway. The whole heat check thing, you're like, all right, I'm feeling good now. I'm going to launch this one, and it's just, I think it got away from it. And kind of keep that, especially at quarterback in the NFL. You got to, especially in a game like this where the Redskins were out of the game yet, you're 1 score away from putting them away. You got to make sure to keep that mentality under wraps, and I think good job about that. But again, that example in particular wasn't great.
And if you do what we just saw before, you definitely don't do this right after, right? This is back-to-back passes. This is another really stupid play. Again, I'm not getting after Case Keenum. I'm simply putting out inconsistency so that we can all know him better as a player. This play right here, this is an example, again, of that whole brain thinks it, arm can't cash it. This is a play where we talked about earlier. Sometimes if you don't put enough touch on this throw, you don't get enough mustard on this throw, you wait a split second too long, the ball is going to be intercepted. That's exactly what happens here. When you do this type of thing, regardless of what the score is, you're putting the other team back in the game. You're shifting momentum onto their side of the football. And thankfully, the Vikings were able to recover from both these interceptions and still win this game. But this is a good Redskins team, you guys. You can't have interceptions ever. I understand the Vikings ultimately won, and that's all that matters. But in terms of evaluating the future of a player, trying to determine whether he's worthy of that, I believe it's a 3-year, $48 million deal that over the cap is projecting for him at this point. If you're worthy of $16 million per year, you don't make this throw ever, simply because it's a dumb decision. People are going to throw interceptions. I get that. But dumb decisions is what loses you your job most of the time. Right.
I mean, these last two plays we looked at are probably the only two negative plays from Keenum since the bye week, right? They just happen to be like very negative. But right. Again, this is just, I think it's a late recognition / I think the safety makes a good jump on this play as well, DJ Swearinger.
Right.
But he do his motion. It's one of those where he anticipates being open, it's not open, and he can't really stop himself mid-throw. But yeah, right. Again, these can't happen, and it hasn't happened since then, and I don't expect anything that bad to happen in the near future. But I mean, the good thing is the Vikings still won this game because Keenum's performance in the first half of this game was as good as it was.
As good as it will ever possibly be, potentially. Because honestly, the first 3 quarters of this game were absolutely bar none outstanding. Like elite level quarterback play for 45 minutes of this game. And then you throw a couple dumb interceptions, and then all of a sudden you got the Teddy Brigade coming back out once again. And honestly, to a degree, I don't blame them, because this is a really dumb play. Like Drew said, you got to give credit to a degree to DJ Swearinger here. Not every safety anticipates this here, but the number one problem here is, like Drew mentioned, you can see by the way that Case Keenum tilts his head here, this is clearly going to be his first read, and I believe, as Drew said, this is going to be a play that he decided pre-snap, and that's an example of him probably guessing wrong on the coverage, which, again, that's going to happen on occasion, but when you guess wrong, big plays happen. You don't want this pick 6 to happen in the NFC Championship game against the Philadelphia Eagles, for example. So moving on here, we're going to get into the Los Angeles Rams here. This game overall, pretty uneven performance. This type of game is sort of what I expected from Case Keenum consistently. It's a solid performance. There's a couple of really nice throws in here. There's also some really pitiful throws. We'll get to both of them. Starting here, this is going to be an example of a play where, again, I'm going to let you guys watch this and try to figure out where I'm going to nitpick before I actually start talking here. What's wrong with this throw? I mean, 25 yards downfield, you take that completion all day, right? But what's wrong with this play? This is what's wrong with this play, the end of this throw. If he drops this in literally a yard, I guess closer, it's kind of a weird, I don't know. If he's a yard off, essentially. That's what happened here. He's a yard off on his throw. If this ball is dropped directly into Adam Thielen's hands, this is probably 6 points. So this is not a bad play. You're going to take 25-yard gainers all day. This is just an example of the difference between an average quarterback and an elite quarterback. An elite quarterback puts that on the hands, and he probably goes in for 6.
Right. I mean, when you say average to elite, I think you're comparing starting quarterbacks in the league right now, and this is a throw that, we've seen elite quarterbacks drop in the bucket, and then it results in either a touchdown or an extra 20, 25 yards on the ground after the catch is made. But I mean, I should probably mention Thielen's still stutter step on this route, because it's unbelievable the way he loses that slot corner and gains himself essentially 7 yards of separation there. And that allows such a wide window for about essentially. I mean, if you look at if you go from point A to point B, in theory,
probably 5 yards down and 2 yards over, 7 yards in total. A little geometry action.
The hypotenuse is probably something like 7 yards. So, but yeah, if Keenum puts this right on the money, it's probably an extra 10, 15 yards on the play, if not a touchdown. But he recognized the throw, made the right decision, which I think Keenum has been very, very good at doing.
Right.
Really since the bye week, but in particular since those 2 interceptions in the Washington game.
You know, seeing him downfield is a win in itself. Again, I don't want to take away from the fact this is a big completion that set up, 4 more chances for the Vikings. Simply, again, we're nitpicking here. We're trying to find mistakes. That's something that he could, in theory, do a little bit better if he wants to, approach, that above average MVP type conversation that people are starting to throw him into. Next play here, sticking with the Rams once again. This particular play is an example of some good, there's some bad here, and there's some, you just accept what you're getting from the quarterback, right? So throwing downfield here, this is going to be into double coverage to Kyle Rudolph. Generally speaking, most coaches will tell you never throw into double coverage. But a lot of quarterbacks will tell you, I trust my receiver enough to throw into double coverage, and that's a good thing. The trust there, the built-in kind of, the theory that, in your head you're thinking, you know what, I see 2 defenders out there, I know it's wrong, but the situation I still think favors my guy, and I'm going to give him a chance. That's one thing that you can give to Case Keenum here as a positive evaluation. You got to be really happy with the fact that he is confident in his players and willing to make this type of throw. At the same time, not a great decision to throw this ball. There are probably better moves to make, especially at this point in the game when the Vikings are winning rather convincingly, given that, the Rams at this point in the game had not even done anything on offense since scoring on their opening drive. So maybe you'd like him to take it down a bit, but at the same time, I understand you guys out there that love the gunslinger mentality, that see the Brett Favre in this type of play here. It literally just says, you know what, I'm a competitor. I think I'm better than you. I think my guy's better than you, and I'm going to give him a chance. And in this particular case, pun intended here for sure, this is a good thing here. Results in a big play for the Vikings.
Yeah, I mean, here's the I don't like criticizing throws, like the decision, if it works out, because this is the ball as well as Case Keenum did here, then it's a good throw, because this is only where Kyle Rudolph can catch the football, and he throws it just at the, right at Rudolph's essentially high catch point right there on the top of the helmet there of the defensive back. I wouldn't advise that decision by any means, but if you can make that, if you can be accurate with it, go for it, And Kyle Rudolph is obviously a humongous target at 6'6", and he can make those catches going, into the air at the high point.
Right.
So he trusts him, and that's another example of Keenum building chemistry with these guys. That, if you want to get back into the Teddy thing, Teddy would have to rebuild,
right,
kind of. And Keenum has been doing that over the past 10 weeks now. So. And this is another example of just trusting a guy when he has a matchup against a smaller player and throwing the ball at the only point where his receiver can make the catch.
Absolutely. So this is something, by the way, for those of you out there who are Kyle Rudolph apologists, I recommend grabbing this play and using this as kind of your poster board for why Kyle Rudolph is, in fact, an athletic tight end, despite showing some signs of being a rather slow human being relative to his peers. This is the type of play that Kyle Rudolph can do for you. He's been doing it for years. It's just you don't see it as consistently as you see the big plays that Thielen and Diggs make, for example. So you sort of forget. But this is the type of advantage that a tight end like Kyle Rudolph is going to give you. All right, finally, folks, we are into the last available game of Case Keenum footage here. We have worked our way through 9 appearances so far. This is number 10 on the year, the most recent game against the Detroit Lions. I'm sure a lot of you guys were very happy with your Thanksgiving strictly because of this performance here by the Vikings as a whole, but by Case Keenum as well. I think you can make an argument that this is the best game that he played all year, especially given the circumstances going on the road at Ford Field, playing against a tough defense with a very good safety in Glover Quinn and a very good cornerback in Darius Slay, and a defensive line that was actually getting after him for basically the first time since the Cleveland Browns game. So a lot of credit to Case Keenum here. This is going to be mostly good things. This is pocket manipulation at its finest here. I'm gonna breeze through this a couple times just to watch the master work here. Check out the way he resets his feet multiple times here. Again, the big thing that I want to harp on, I've been saying it throughout the show, and I want this to kind of drive home for people, is watch the way he resets his feet right here as he moves out of the pocket, manipulates that pocket, puts himself into a situation where he's at an advantage and allows him to basically drive his throw. Check out his shoulder, the way it's squared toward where he's throwing the ball. And since this is the live broadcast, they didn't have the all-22, you could see this is a third down situation where the Vikings need a first down here to continue the drive. And Case Keenum is going to give them that literally by manipulating the pocket with his feet, getting defenders behind him, and driving this ball downfield to Adam Thielen, who once again, shocker, he's got about 3 yards of separation from his man.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those throws that I think the very first clip of the show, and this was very similar to that, where Keenum was flushed a little bit to his right and had to kind of reset his feet while moving to his left slightly and then make a throw over the middle to Thielen on a crossing route. And that throw was behind Thielen by about a foot, and it forced a tough catch that actually Thielen made. But this one obviously is right between the numbers for Thielen, and he's able to make the catch and safely fall to the ground and for a solid first down pickup here. So Case Keenum's movement in the pocket has been unbelievable this year. This is just, he moves to the left, he steps up when it's there, and that was always a criticism that I had of Sam Bradford, especially, was that he would take the snap and kind of stay in one spot and wait for his receivers to get get open, make their break, and then throw, and he wouldn't really create room for himself, which is something Case Keenum has done phenomenally all year long.
Absolutely. Okay, so I have given, I believe throughout the show, I think there's been 3 plays where I've looked at him and I've said this has an argument for being the best throw that Case Keenum is going to make all year. I think that there are 4 in total. This is the final one that, in my opinion, is in the running for that, quote, best throw of the year, if you're someone who likes to keep track of that sort of thing. This, in my opinion, this would get my vote. This is the best throw that he's made all year. I don't know. This is outstanding. I just remember I was watching this with my buddy's family, sitting there, and I saw this play get up, and I stood up off my feet and made a fool out of myself. This was an absolutely phenomenal throw. I mean, Kyle Rudolph is going to get separation, but look at, there's 3 defenders right there within about 5 yards of Kyle Rudolph. It needs to be perfectly placed to make this throw. Guys, this is a Tom Brady throw. And no, I'm not comparing Case Keenum to Tom Brady straight up. I'm comparing this throw to a throw that Tom Brady has made 1,000,000 times in his career. This is a moneymaker. This is why you give Case Keenum $16 million. If you get a big tight end like Kyle Rudolph, you expect your quarterback to utilize him, and Case Keenum finds him in the best way possible here. This is an outstanding throw, outstanding play top to bottom. And again, you don't even notice the fact that if you keep an eye on it at the very end, once he releases this pass, look at where he's getting sandwiched in between these 2 defenders. Check that out. He's on his back before that ball's really even in the air.
Yeah, I mean, I remember in that Packers game, there was one, I think the touchdown he had to Diggs with like a 25-yarder where Mike Daniels came in just scorching hot and drilled him right in the chest literally as he's letting go of the football, and Bradford puts on a dime for a touchdown. This is another example of that, only it's Case Keenum to 3 defenders really here. It's dropped perfectly in the bucket. It's a 10-cent currency coin piece right here. This is a phenomenal toss by Case Keenum in the midst of pressure, and that's kind of been slightly, one thing I was slightly skeptical of Keenum, especially before the season, but also kind of earlier in the year, was how well can he throw the football when getting obliterated or when in the face of pressure, because while the offensive line is certainly better, we can't expect there to never be pressure on a quarterback. You expect your quarterback to be able to do that. And
all right, so moving on to the final play here. We're going to start exactly where, we're going to finish, exactly where we started with another play action play. This is an example of Case Keenum just doing his thing once again. The beauty of this one is partially Adam Thielen and also partially Case Keenum himself. Again, that play action fake has been working literally start to finish since the time when he started week 2 against the Steelers all the way to the most recent game in week 12. Play action has been basically Case Keenum's best friend. It's been play action and that quick slant route over the middle. Those are the 2 plays that have really stood out in a big way for Case Keenum and Pat Shurmur. They've been consistent calls. And this is textbook Case Keenum. I think this is the type of player to expect moving forward here. A guy that can make it work with play action, assuming he's getting a good running game and assuming he's getting good protection, enough protection that is to basically allow his receivers to get downfield. just once again, another phenomenal play action pass from Case Keenum to set the Vikings up in a good situation.
Well, watch how close up the linebackers are here from Detroit. Look at how aggressively they bite up on this, especially I think that's Jared Davis and I can't remember. Look at who the other one is, but both of them are come up to the line of scrimmage. It's Whitehead. They both come up to the line of scrimmage in anticipation of that play action fake, and then I think the motion for Diggs too on kind of that zone split action where he comes across and blocks the opposite side, the weak side. That kind of draws it in as well, and that opens up the backside for a one-on-one matchup for Thielen. Obviously, Keenum's going to exploit almost every time.
All right, folks, so that is the end of the film here. We're going to wrap this thing up with two things. First and foremost, because there is a little bit of delay between live and whatnot, this is the time if you have any questions for us on this breakdown or I guess anything else, we'll hopefully we can leave about 5 minutes for questions here. But Drew, I want you to give me your biggest takeaways about Case Keenum. Give me two things that really excite you about him as a quarterback, and give me one thing that's negative about him. If you want to put it in sandwich format, good, bad, good, that might be the way to go here. Finish me off with a Case Keenum sandwich.
Yeah, I think I'll start with a good here is that I think Keenum's pocket movement has always been really good all season long, and I think aside from that Pittsburgh game, I was slightly concerned about it, but the entire season it's been phenomenal. I think he's created plays with his feet that aren't supposed to be there and essentially or weren't scripted for, I guess, in the play, that he's been really good at creating himself. I think for a negative, I'm going to kind of keep, with this idea that he's anticipating things sometimes. When you get into a groove like that, you start to anticipate things, and I think that happened in the Washington game. That happened with a couple of his other interceptions. And, I think you have to keep level-headed mentality there, that things aren't just going to happen because you expect them to. You have to make sure they're there. And every quarterback isn't just Case Keenum. This isn't even just Jackson. This is, the Tom Brady's there and Rodgers. It all happens to everybody. So I think just eliminating that as much as possible is going to be the next step for him. But and then I guess a good here would just be the chemistry that's built. I think, because I've said this before, I think Case Keenum has been the same Case Keenum his entire career. Being prior to this year, whether it's St. Louis, Houston, Los Angeles, wherever he was, he's been the same player. He just hasn't had the supporting cast and the scheme that he does now. And now that he's built this chemistry, you're seeing it each week now that the actual Case Keenum, when he has a decent supporting cast, he has a running game and offensive line, receivers like Diggs and Thielen, he can be a good quarterback. And so as long as that chemistry keeps building, I think he's only going to get better. And that I don't think this is some brand. I think this is just who he is as a quarterback. When he's positioned, as long as he continues, we should expect good things.
Absolutely. All right. So for me, the number one thing positive for Case Keenum, something that you have seen literally every single week, that's his toughness. I harped on it throughout, this clip brigade. Guy simply stands in there in the pocket and makes the throw no matter what. There's no softness in Case Keenum. He's a true football player. He's a guy that's going to, he's going to dive for extra yards as opposed to sliding. So this has some negative elements to it, I suppose. It makes him somewhat injury prone simply because he does take all of these hits and does stand in there against pressure. But ultimately, that's a good thing. You want a quarterback that's, willing to face pressure head on. And you just kind of hope that your protection unit can do a good enough job so that it's limited to a degree. So toughness is my number one positive from Case Keenum. As a negative, just the decision making as a whole. Part of that is just simply the fact that he hasn't been starting for a long time. He's still developing some tendencies, still working on some specific things, as Drew mentioned. Sometimes he's deciding where he's going with the ball before the snap happens. That's something that a veteran quarterback does less of, or at least in terms of when they're trying to make a pre-snap read and have a better, generally speaking, veterans are going to be guys that make better pre-snap reads. So that's something that he could work on here. And finally, the last positive for me, I said it probably 18 times, just the play action. I think he runs play action as well as any quarterback in the NFL right now, honestly. I haven't ran the percentages. I haven't done the charting for it yet, but I know that the play action has been there for him virtually all season long. He does a phenomenal job with it, and that's something that I expect him to continue to. So that, I believe, wraps up the show. I think we got a couple questions here. I know Drew's internet is
Here,
faulty.
I think they're BJ. They're asking about as of right now, who do you think is the Vikings quarterback next year? I think, or who do you think has a higher chance of staying in Minnesota over the offseason?
I think right now you have to go with Case Keenum, don't you? I mean, that's a loaded question for sure, right? There's no correct answer. There's no correct answer. I'm going to piss someone off no matter what I say, but I'm going to go with the hot hand just because that's what the Vikings have been doing so far. We all know how much Mike Zimmer loves Teddy Bridgewater. We all know that he wants to get Teddy Bridgewater back in there, but if Case Keenum keeps playing like he does, we mentioned this on the last podcast, there's nothing wrong with the top 10 offense. Even if you think that potentially your backup quarterback can lift you to a top 8 offense. I love Teddy. I hope he gets a chance to play. But in my opinion, if Case Keenum plays the way he has over the last 4 weeks, every single week, I'm fine with Teddy Bridgewater leaving. That's just how football is sometimes. I wish the guy success, but at this point, Case Keenum is playing out of his mind. You can't pull him.
Right.
I'm a believer on that theory now. You can't pull him at this point. And if that costs Minnesota the chance to see Teddy Bridgewater back on the field in purple and gold, so be it. So long as the Vikings end up continuing to get better and ultimately get close, or hopefully this season reach that goal of doing that thing that we don't want to talk about.
Right. I mean, I think it's very possible that both guys are back because I think Teddy could be paid like a backup quarterback after this, given that he hasn't played in 2 years. And I think Case would be the favorite at this point to be the starter next year. I'm kind of expecting the Vikings to at least have a home playoff game, maybe even win a home. And then prediction on this is that if Case Keenum leads them to a playoff game or playoff win, he's got to be the favorite to be returning as a starter with that, whatever it would be, like 3-year, $50 million contract. Something along those lines, I would assume, is going to be the favorite here. But I still think Teddy could return on a backup QB-like deal, even if the Vikings do also return Case Keenum.
Absolutely. All right, so we got a couple other questions here. Let's finish out with from Bradley Trogdon. He said, how much of Case's success is receivers bailing him out? This has been a popular discussion across the national media. I know Bucky Brooks has been harping on this quite a bit. I saw Reggie Wayne chimed in as well. A lot of people are going to tell you that the receivers are doing a lot for Case Keenum, and they're right. They are. The Vikings wide receivers are absolutely making Case Keenum a better quarterback. To some degree, you have to wonder what it would be like if he was trotting out, Travis Taylor and Andre Allison with him just to see if he could make these type of throws still. But at the same time, let's keep this in mind. Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs aren't going anywhere. So does it really matter all that much if the receivers are inflating his stats, so to speak? I don't know. I mean, I don't think it matters that much if the Vikings receivers are comfortable with it and continue to make big plays, and Keenum becomes more and more, I guess less and less dependent on his receivers as he continues to grow at the position, which he has been over the last couple of weeks. I don't know if it matters all that much, but to answer the question simply, I think you'll agree with me on this one, Drew. Yeah, the receivers are absolutely bailing him out of quite a few plays every single game, and they're absolutely making him a better quarterback than at least he was when he was with Los Angeles and Houston.
Well, yeah, I mean that's how any legendary quarterback is made to some degree. Is they have, I mean, think about all these great quarterbacks that have played. I'm thinking, Tom Brady's had Randy Moss and Rob Gronkowski to play with. You think of Joe Montana and Steve Young. They had Jerry Rice on their team.
Right.
You can look back to all of these Hall of Fame quarterbacks, and they had tremendous receivers on their team to help them out. So I think it's, Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs are helping, and Kyle Rudolph are helping Case Keenum by making some great catches, but that's how every quarterback that's had success in the past has built their success, is by to win. And it should not be a knock on Case Keenum that's happening to him. It's just that, when you have the resources available and you have guys that can make those plays, why not throw to them? And I mean, you can't fault them for it. You can't.
Right. So I believe that wraps up the show. If you guys have any other final thoughts that you want to hit us with, we will be recording an About the Labor podcast tonight for tomorrow morning. We're happy to answer any questions that we didn't, or comment on any thoughts, or interact with us. We're happy to play with you guys. Whatever it is that whatever you're feeling, throw that at us. You can find us on Twitter at VikingsATL Pod. Drew is at Drew Mahowald, Mahowald. On the last name there, and myself, Robert Reidell, Reidell. Anything you got for us, feel free to throw it our way, and we'll hit it up on the podcast later on tonight. I do want to apologize to you guys. I know that we've done this kind of ironically throughout the show here. We're sorry about the technical difficulties that we've been dealing with here, whether it's the internet, my blackout, just everything that has really gone wrong with the show. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed. You were able to enjoy it anyways. We tried to power through it as much as possible and try to look the other way, but something that we're not going to let happen again, hopefully. We apologize for that. So thanks for bearing with us. Thanks for being with us for what has been about a 90-minute breakdown. Hopefully, at the very least, you guys came away with some more optimism toward Case Keenum's case moving forward, and just simply understand that, this guy is limited to a degree, but he's playing very well despite those limitations, and a lot of that is, a product of Pat Shurmur designing great plays for him, putting him in a great offense. A lot of that is based off the fact he's gotten great protection, and some of that is based off the fact that his receivers are really, really good. But at the end of the day, Case Keenum is getting it done. There's enough examples of that at this point in this sample size to be happy with your quarterback and satisfied with the fact that this is a guy that can probably take you deep into the postseason, assuming that the defense continues to play as well as it does. So any final thoughts from you, Drew, before we sign out of here?
I think I think if people didn't watch the beginning of this, you missed a lot of good stuff. So we got a lot of people file in later. So rewatch the first half. I think the whole thing does go up on YouTube. So whenever we went live, we were very confused as to when we were actually live and when we weren't. So that could be entertaining for some people if they want to check that out. But I would rewatch the entire thing if you haven't already, just to see what you missed in the first few games of the season as far as Keenum's performance.
Absolutely. All right, folks. So once again, we apologize for the technical difficulties. We really appreciate you guys being here with us and powering through anyways. We'll be back tomorrow with About the Labor podcast. You can look on Vikings territory. I believe it's going to be Tuesday. I'll have a written article on a lot of the stuff we just talked about with some more in-depth breakdown and stuff like that. So for those of you who like to read, that'll be up on probably Tuesday. And we'll get back to our regular podcast schedule Monday, Wednesday, Friday, starting tomorrow. So thanks for joining us, and we will catch you guys later on this week.